How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon. Ooh, do I have to sneeze? 1 second. Wow, I just sneezed. That was nice. That was good. That was good. That was good. Very good. Alright. Yeah, we're in business. Now we're in business. Alright. Well, let's start over. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we stand Daf Chav Ches, 28 of Masechta Nedarim, friends. We talk about Nedarim today. Different kinds of Nedarim. Alright. We're going to start on Daf Chav Zayin and Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. You ready? Let's go. Nodrin l'horgim v'lachromin v'lamochsin. Okay, you can make nedars, vows to murderers, plunderers, and tax collectors. Murderers, plunderers, tax collectors. Interesting grouping together. Shei truma, avabli sheina truma. You can basically lie. Somebody's going to kill you, and threatening you. You could say, "Look, this stuff is." You can make a neder and say, "Look, it's truma. Leave me alone," even though it's actually not truma. Shein shel beis hamelech, afapi shein shel beis hamelech. You could say that it's the property of the king, even though it isn't. Beishame bakol nodrin. Beishame says you can make all sorts of these vows. Chutz mi bashvur, but stay away from oaths. Beisil om ap bashvur. Beisil says you can even make oaths. Beishame om lo yiftach lo beneder. Beishame says you shouldn't preemptively vow. Right? Only if you're asked to vow can you vow. In this case, right? A plunderer comes and he says, vow to me that this stuff is truma. So in that case, you could vow. Beisil omer yiftach lo. Beisil says you can even preemptively vow, even unprovoked. You can vow to a plunderer that this stuff is truma, even though it isn't. Beishame om b'mashu madiro. Beishame says, look, if he's going to make you vow, so then you can, if you can vow within the scope of what you're asked to vow about, and only within that scope will, it be permitted and not forbidden to you. But if you, go beyond that scope, then it will be forbidden to you. We'll give an example in a second. And Beisil says even out of scope things. Keitzad, nu. What's an example? So Amarlo, Emor konam ishti nenesli. Right? If the plunderer says to you, "Oh yeah, that stuff is truma," make a vow that if it turns out that it's not truma, then you won't get any benefit from your wife. Amar konam ishti uvanai nenenli, and he throws in not just his wife but oichid his children. Beishame omrim, he says, make a vow, on the benefit of your wife of your wife that this is really truma, and he throws in his kids oichet. Beishame omrim ishto muteris uvanav asurin. So Beishame says, look, this right. He was asked to vow about his wife, so within the context of his wife, he would still be able to get benefit from her, even though the stuff isn't actually truma. Because, he was asked to make a vow about her, but a plunderer asked to vow about her. So he made the vow, even though it wasn't true. But because he's a plunderer, so we say, look, he's still mutter to his wife, but he shouldn't have mentioned his kids. He wasn't asked about his kids. He shouldn't have mentioned them. And the fact that he threw them into the mix as well, now he's going to be usher to them, to get benefit from them. Whereas Beisil says, no, even if you go beyond the scope of what you were asked to vow about from a plunderer, even if you go beyond the scope, everything's going to be permitted because it was kind of a b'diavad situation to begin with. You got a plunderer being all plundery. And plunderers is a b'diavad situation. And, okay, let's go weiter. Says the Gemara. What does the Gemara say? Ve'omer Shmuel, dina de malchusa dina. Friends, you hear? You hear the kasha? No, who can tell me what the kasha is? The kasha is, what does the Mishnah say? It says you could lie to a tax collector. The tax collector comes to collect his taxes, and you say, oh, that stuff? You can't collect from that. That's truma. Even though it's a lie. So, frak the Gemara, ve'omer Shmuel dina de malchusa dina. But Shmuel says you can't, you have to abide by the laws of the land. And if the laws of the land are that you have to pay taxes to the tax collector, you can't just lie and say that, oh yeah, it's truma, you don't want that, even though it's not. You can't lie to evade taxes. If you have to pay taxes, you have to pay taxes. Yeah, but here we're talking about a tax collector who's a nudnik. A tax collector, kind of like a corrupt tax collector who's buddies with the king, and, I guess they make, as long as I guess he gives a certain amount to the king and keeps the king happy, he could, then charge however much he wants and keep the difference, He's a dishonest, corrupt tax collector, so in that case you can lie to him. Or better yet, a self-appointed tax collector. I guess maybe that's kind of like a mafia situation, maybe. Protection money, a self-appointed tax collector. So you can wiggle your way out of that. But enochinami, if it was just regular taxes that you have to pay, so you have to pay taxes. What do you want me to tell you? You can't lie to evade taxes. So we said that you could say that they belong to the stuff belongs to the house of the king, even though it's not true. Heichi Nadar. So what does the vow look like? So Amar Rav Amam says, Amar Rab, you're also pair so olam alai, that the fruits of the world will be ushered to me im einon shel beis hamelech. Right? In the event that these fruits do not belong to the king, to the house of the king, well then all the fruits of the world should be forbidden to me. But you're also itzu ale koperi ama. One second, but if he's saying that in the event that they don't belong to the king, so then all of the fruits of the world are going to be also to me. Well, these things don't belong to the king, so shouldn't all the fruits of the world be forbidden to him? So ba'omer ayom, he says no, just for today. If these don't belong to the king, so then all the fruits of the world will be also to me, but just for today. But if he's saying just for today, the tax collector is not going to be particularly, convinced. And the guy is saying, oh yeah, this stuff belongs to the house of the king, and if not, then all the fruits of the world are going to be also, but just for today. Well, in that case, the stakes aren't so high. The tax collector isn't going to be so convinced. Maybe the guy's just saying, all right, fine, so I won't need any fruit for today. Who cares? So be'omer belibo hayom. So we say, well, no, actually it's talking about where the guy says to the tax collector that, if these stuff do not in fact belong to the king, so then all the fruits of the world can be also to me. That's all he says. But in his heart, he's thinking just for today. And even though in general, we hold that, dvarim shebalev enam dvarim, that whatever you're thinking in your heart doesn't necessarily matter. If you're saying that all the fruits of the world are going to be also to you, but in your heart you're thinking, oh yeah, but just for today, that's irrelevant. The fact of what you're thinking in your heart is not relevant. But the gabi onsen shiny. But where it's like sort of a b'diavad situation, you have a plunderer there, so that's a different story. And therefore, if while you're saying that all the fruits of the world will be also to me, but in your heart you're thinking just for the day, so that should be enough in the context of a plunderer. So we had said in the Mishnah that Beishamai says that you could sort of make these false vows but not false oaths. Beishamai omim b'meh shehu madiro v'sil omim af b'sheinu madiro. And then Beishamai had said that he only gets a free pass with what he's asked to vow about, but not beyond that scope, right? So not if he throws in his kids, even though he was only asked to vow about his wife. Whereas Beis Hillel had said, no, even if he goes beyond the scope, that he would still be exempt from that. Kate said, what's an example? So he said, right, if the plunderer says, make a vow about that your wife wouldn't get any benefit from you, and he throws in his kids, so Beishami says, look, only his wife is going to be permitted, but the kids are going to be forbidden because, they weren't included. He wasn't asked to vow about them. So Basil says that no, that they're all permitted, even the kids would be permitted as well, even though he wasn't asked to vow about them. Amr Rav Huna says, Rav Huna Tanim, we learn in a brisa. Beishamai says that he shouldn't sort of preemptively make an oath. And Basil says, no, you can even preemptively make an oath. Right? You have a plunderer, you can even preemptively, without being requested to make an oath that you won't get any benefit from fruits of the world and stuff if this is not in fact true. So the Beishamai bashvua hu de lo yiftach lo ha beneder yiftach lo. But for the Gemara, so according to this brisa, what's Beishamai saying? Beishamai says by an oath, but he can't preemptively make an oath, implying that he can preemptively vow. But didn't we learn in our Mishnah, Beishamai om lo yiftach lo beneder, that he cannot preemptively vow? I don't know what I just said a second ago, but the Bryce is saying he cannot preemptively oath, but implying he can preemptively vow. But our Mishnah is saying he even cannot preemptively vow. Visu, and more so, miftach hu lo yiftach lo bashvur, ha meider nodar bashvur, while he can't, right, according to this Bryce, we're saying he can't preemptively make an oath, but if he's asked to make an oath, he can. But didn't we learn in our Mishnah, Beishamai om bakol nojin chutz mi bashvur? But didn't Beishamai say that you can make vows but not oaths? So Tanamas Nisim Beneder Lodeach Hakochen de Beishamai. So we say, look, we need both the Brisa and the Mishnah. Our Mishnah, which is talking about vows, is showing the extreme position of Beishamai. The lengths to his Beishamai goes that even though we're only talking about vows, still Beishamai says that that you still can't preemptively vow. Tada Brisa, and the Brisa B'Shavua L'Decha Kochen Beisil shows you how far Beisil goes to say that even when it comes to oaths, you can preemptively oath. Alright, fine. Ravashi Omar Achi Katoni B'Shami Om in Sheila B'Shavua Beisil Om Yeshela B'Shavua. Ravashi says that the Brisa is talking about something completely different. It's talking about, can you go to a chacham, to a sage, to release a oath. If you made an oath, can you go to get it released by a sage? It's a completely different machlokus over Beishamai saying ein sheila b'shvua, that you can't release an oath. V'salom yesh sheila b'shvua, that you can release an oath, but it's a completely different machlokus. According to Ravashi, it's just they're arguing about something completely different in that brisa, nothing to do with the plunderers in the Mishnah. All right, friends, let's move on. Now we get to a new Mishnah. Alright, these saplings, these planted things are going to be also. They're going to be like a sacrifice. If they don't get cut, if they don't get felled, if they don't get cut. Talazo korban, this prayer shawl or this cloak is going to be also. If it doesn't get burnt, so then it's going to be also. Yeshla and pigeon, so then they're hektish. They're hektish. Hare netio sa'elu korban adshi katzutzu. If he says that these saplings are going to be also until they're cut. Talazo korban adshi tisarif. This cloak is going to be also until it gets burnt. Einla and pigeon. Then there's no you can't redeem them. We're going to see on tomorrow's daf about what happens once they get cut or whatever it is. But we're saying right until then they are osur, and there's no way to redeem them because you're saying right that, let's say the thing until it's cut down, it's going to be osur, so then you can't be podet at least until it's cut down. We're going to learn in tomorrow's daf about what happens once it gets cut down. Fine. How come if you look at the ratio of the Mishnah, right, it says yeshla and pigeon, right? So it says that if this sapling doesn't get cut down, so then it's going to be kadosh. It's going to be a korban. It's going to be also like a korban. And we say yeshla and pigeon. We don't say it's asur. We say that yeshla and pigeon, it can be redeemed, meaning that it's hektish and therefore it's an eder. So why kind of like the backwards way of saying it? If listening kedushos, ve'ein kedushos, just say that they're hektish, that they're kadosh, that they're asur. Why go this backwards way to say einon nifta, right? Yeshla and pigeon, that they can be redeemed, implying that they're kadosh. Why not just say explicitly that they're kadosh? So I did the bar the Mr. Seifa ein pigeon. Tanan Ami Reisha Yeshlim pigeon. Okay, well, since the Seifa says that, if you say that it's also until it gets cut down, so then there's no way to redeem it until it gets cut down. So because the Sefer says Ein Lem Pidyon, so the Reisha says Yesh Lem Pidyon, but yeah, basically it means that it's Kadosh. Alright. Heichi Nadar. So what does a neder look like, right? Meaning when it says that these saplings are also like a korban if they aren't cut down. So, eventually they're going to be cut down, right? These saplings are going to die eventually, be cut down eventually at some point. Seichi Nadar. So, Omer HaMeimar says, HaMeimar Be'omer im Eino Niktzatzos Hayom. Now, if he's saying if they are not cut down today, so then V'avar Hayom V'lo Niktzatzu, and then the day passed and they weren't cut down, so then they are also. Im Kain Lamali Lemeimar Pshita. So obviously it says if they're not cut, if he's saying that if they're not cut down today, then they're going to be also. Day ends, they're not cut down, so of course they're going to be also. So Lo Tzricha Kigon Diika Zika Nefisha, well, it's talking about where there's like a big, powerful wind, and therefore, it was looking like they were probably going to not make it. And he's saying, look, if they don't end up falling down, so then they're also. V'akatani law, and similarly we taught gabetalis, right? We said that by a cloak, vitalis l'sreifa kaima, what is a cloak automatically going to eventually burn? Not necessarily, right? A garment isn't automatically gonna catch on fire. So we say, yeah, it's talking about kagon deika deleka. It's talking about where there is a fire nearby, and he's saying, well, if this thing survives the fire, if it gets saved by the fire, so then it's going to be asur. Achinami here also dika zika nefisha, that there's a big wind also with regard to these saplings. And I may have thought the masakadaite that he's just assuming dilomis natzlon, that look, there's no chance that these saplings are going to make it through this crazy wind, through this hurricane, right? There's no chance that this cloak is not going to get burnt. And that's why he's saying, look, in the event that they don't get burnt or blown away, so then they're also. But he may have thought that, so in the event that they don't get blown away, let's say this, he assumed that they were going to get blown away or they were going to get burnt, and therefore he didn't really think that there was actually a chance of them surviving, and therefore maybe it wasn't really a real neder, kamash malan, that it is a real neder, and it's going to be, if the garment doesn't get burnt, or if the saplings do in fact survive, we're going to say, look, he made a neder, and therefore they're going to be asur to him. Friends, that was the Avchav Ches of Masechta Nedarim. We talked about some interesting things about making untrue vows to plunderers. We had the interesting concept of Dina de Machusa Dina, that you can't just evade taxes because you have to abide by the laws of the country that you live in. We saw the concept of Devarim Shebalev Einam Devarim, right? We saw in the context of a plunderer, you can kind of say one thing but have in mind another thing because it's a plunderer. But in general, we would say that you can't just like say one thing but think something else. Right? That would be Devarim Shebalev Einam Devarim. All right, this is very interesting stuff. Hope you enjoyed the Avchav Ches Masechta Nedarim. Peace out.